Let's go back in time. It's 1997. Picture me 20 years younger. I had short blonde hair at the time. I'm in Circuit City with my family, shopping for something or other. We pass by the television displays, and on the screen is a beautiful brunette woman in camouflage clothing giving food to this little teddy bear. This, ladies and gentlemen, was my first ever exposure to Star Wars, and it all started with Return of the Jedi. Hello and welcome to another edition of Star Wars Reviews with One True Viking Bard. Since our last two videos have been about something I didn't like, I thought that instead we jump right into something I do like. And what better way to do that than with yet another controversial opinion, just like the last two videos. A lot of fans hate Return of the Jedi. Like seriously, they think that High Ground and I Am the Senate is a better Star Wars film than this one. And considering how much these same fans worshipped Rogue One, and to a degree The Force Awakens, this movie gets shoved down even farther than Revenge of the Sith. I never saw it as worthy of so much hate. Having established that this is the first time I ever saw anything Star Wars related, let's fast forward to the 21st century. Sometime between 2000 and 2002, after I'd already seen A New Hope, but more on that later, I made the mistake of borrowing from the library this movie instead of Empire Strikes Back. I was a kid and Roman numerals were difficult for me. Then again, math has always been difficult for me. So, instead of Empire Strikes Back, and even though I did get the hipster treatment by seeing A New Hope as my first proper Star Wars film that I actively watched, I saw Return of the Jedi afterwards instead of Empire Strikes Back. Also, it was the 1997 special edition version which I saw. And since I'm talking about a film from the original trilogy, I think that in this video, I'll talk about something which I liked about this, as well as some bad things and good things about the special edition. So let's jump right into the story. I don't think this is a bad movie at all. Even after seeing all the hate that it gets, I don't think it's bad. The Ewoks defeating the Empire is kind of a hyperbolic argument. They get the jump on them, true. But in the midsection of the epic three-way Battle of Endor, they actually start losing. We see that touching moment where the two Ewoks are running, and one gets killed and the other one doesn't. Yeah, they weren't pawning the Empire as easily as the Empire Strikes Back fanboys like to say. In fact, I would say that it was only until Chewbacca commandeered the AT-ST that the Ewoks stopped getting swamped and the tide was turned in favor of the rebels. I don't think I need to say any more about that. I mean, yeah, George Lucas wanted to do his whole, if the will of the people is set, technological superiority doesn't matter. But I digress. One argument the Empire fanboys love to give as why this movie is bad is because it's too kiddish. Which is funny when you hear these people say the same thing in defense of The Last Jedi, which was kiddish. I think it's ironic that they say that, especially that they prefer the Yub Nub ending, which is cutesy and kiddish, as opposed to the special edition ending. In fact, I think that J.J. Abrams might have had the Yub Nub ending as the canon ending, as I said in the last video, because Yub Nub reduces the victory of the rebels over the Empire to a localized, kiddish celebration by some singing teddy bears. And because the Disney Star Wars invalidates everything that the originals and the prequels did, why not go with Yub Nub, which invalidates, cheapens, and minimalizes the victory in Return of the Jedi? The saga concludes as a nice way to bring the story to an end. It shows the celebrations of the fall of the Empire in all the places visited in the original trilogy. I don't believe in the 2004 re-edit with Naboo, but that's one of the few things I don't like about it. I will definitely get into more details about it later. But again, the saga concludes has a more somber but still childlike and innocent ending, where we say goodbye to our heroes after a well-earned victory. It's nice, and since Star Wars is officially dead to me after The Last Jedi, I like to believe that the story ends here, and the saga concludes is a nice ending. Disney Star Wars is unnecessary and vile, but that's a subject for another video. Okay, so we've cleared some of the rubble out of the way. Let's talk about the virtues of this film. It feels, well, bigger. With a lot of you, I think will laugh at this in regards to the recap scene on Endor, where C-3PO relates the events of the last 2 movies to the Ewoks. But seriously, this film just feels bigger. We have more aliens thrown into our world in Jabba's palace. We have the assembled Rebel Alliance fleet, which is much bigger than it was in Empire Strikes Back. And of course, we have what many people other than me will rightly call the best part of the original trilogy, the big space battle of Endor. It still amazes me how good it looks, what with the technology of the early 80s. And it was edited very little in the special editions. Even the Death Star is bigger, allowing our heroes to literally fly into the superstructure in order to bring back victory for the galaxy. Joseph Campbell saw what you did there, George. Even the stunts were more extravagant due to there being a professional stunt crew on this film, as opposed to the last 2. Now, maybe I have a personal attachment to this film from having seen it first after A New Hope, that is, or because of the hero's conflict and the A-plot. But I actually like the stuff that goes on between Vader and Luke in this film. After the initial shock that Darth Vader was Luke's father and they were just going with it, I actually was kind of invested in Luke's story. I actually like Luke, which is strange because no one else does. They all ogle after the coward Han Solo and the bossy Princess Leia. I'm not sure why, but more on that later. Luke's conflict with Darth Vader on the Death Star and how he could confront him without falling to evil was very powerful and poignant, and stays with me to this very day in my own personal struggles. I have heard that originally Luke was supposed to fall to the dark side and become the new Darth Vader, which I think J.J. Abrams stole for Kylo Ren, and I think a lot of Empire fanboys would have liked it if it ended that way. But I sincerely would have hated Return of the Jedi if it went that way. Star Wars is space fantasy. It's not some gritty, post-modernist science fiction crap where good is evil, evil is good, the good guys lose, and the bad guys win. That's not how myth works. Or, as Han Solo said in The Force Awakens, that's not how the Force works. I'm glad that we got a movie where good triumphs over evil, for once, instead of the other way around. One criticism of this movie is that this is Luke's film exclusively. Everyone apparently hated Luke. We know Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson sure did. And didn't want him to succeed, which is why they enjoy Empire Strikes Back and its much more interesting B-plot of Han Solo and Leia. For those who argue that Han and Leia have nothing to do in this film, I would argue against this. Han is part of the very essential destruction of the shield generator. There was also a scene in the novelization where, in order to convince the Ewoks to join the rebellion, Han makes an impassioned speech about how he's changed and how he stopped being out for himself and all. This was cut from the final film, and we get instead that subtle moment where he comes back to Leia and says, "I'm sorry." It's a big character moment, one that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams defecated over in The Force Awakens by reverting him back to his A New Hope status. But I think you all would have hated Return of the Jedi if that line from the novel had been in the film. As for Leia, I'll agree that aside from meeting and befriending Wicket and killing Jabba the Hutt, she doesn't have much to do in this film. Speaking of the Tatooine sequence, let's go over Luke's plan, because I think a lot of people don't get what his plan was. I, for one, feel that I have. He sends the droids first with his message of introduction and them as a gift. This puts them in Jabba's palace, especially R2-D2, who has his lightsaber stored inside him. The waves of rescuers wasn't part of his plan, but more likely the individual plans of Leia and Chewbacca and Lando themselves. Then Luke shows up after several days alone, going the way of the Jedi Consular by attempting to negotiate before turning to Force. And I do mean lethal Force, not the cop-out of using the Force. I don't know. It never bothered me, so I don't see why other people were bothered by it. Now, let's talk about the special edition. Right off the bat, Jedi Rock sucks. It's a stupid song, and the rapping alien is cringeworthy and obnoxious. I remember distinctively getting embarrassed while watching this scene, and my folks walk in and go, "What the hell are you watching?" Now, as a song alternative, Lopty Neck does work. But seriously, the puppetry in that scene is atrocious. Were there 4 puppeteering teams on this film? The A team consisting of Frank Oz, the B team working on Jabba the Hutt, the C team on Admiral Akbar, the Gamorreans, and other aliens we see up close a lot, and the D team working on Cy Snootles. She looks like a rubber chicken that is being dangled from a coat hanger. The whole "no" line that was thrown in at the crucial point of the film, where the Emperor is trying to kill Luke with his Force lightning, was atrocious. For one, it crackled as though it wasn't properly mixed into the rest of the audio in that scene. As a musician who does a lot of personal recording from home, I realize that this can be a problem. Having audio tracks of equal volume overlap can create a dense sonic atmosphere with a lot of clipping. I still don't understand how to fix that because compressing doesn't seem to quite do it, but nevertheless, I understand. Also, it destroys the dramatic momentum of that scene. In every special edition prior to the Blu-ray, Vader makes the choice to save Luke just as the Force theme rises up out of the tense music that is dominating that scene, making it a powerfully emotionally driven scene. Now with the no, it just feels empty. Kind of a nitpick, but I like the removal of Sebastian Shaw's eyebrows when the mask is removed, because they stick out like sore thumbs. Also, since the novelization states that Anakin was burned alive in lava, like we saw in Revenge of the Sith, it would make more sense that his eyebrows were burned off as well. Also, I didn't quite mind Vader being unmasked. I honestly think that's good for the narrative. I might go into more detail on this when I talk about Empire Strikes Back, but honestly, I like Return of the Jedi. And the Luke and Vader arc is something that I appreciate. And I might just go into deeper detail about that with my Empire Strikes Back review. But back to the special edition. The addition of Naboo in the celebratory part of the saga concludes is annoying, and it just reminds the audience that Jar Jar Binks existed, which is why it didn't need to be thrown in there. As for the Force Ghosts, I don't mind Sebastian Shaw's Anakin Skywalker Force Ghost. It makes sense, since he came back to the light when he was old, that his Force Ghost should also be old as well, reflecting the point of his life where he turned from darkness to light. As far as what I think the special editions should have included, I think the additional scenes with Moff Jerjerrod should have been doctored up and thrown back into the film. This would have been a change for the better, sort of like Biggs from A New Hope, but I'll talk about that. Now, with the addition of 3 battles, if we have the time limit of, holy crap, the Death Star is going to blow up Endor and all of our favorite heroes on it, it would make the end so much more dramatic. But, you know, that's a thing. So yeah, that was kind of a ramble, and I went off topic and was all over the place. But yeah, those are my thoughts on one of my favorite Star Wars movies, Return of the Jedi. I think that's going to do it for this video. Next, I don't know. Maybe we should talk about Empire Strikes Back, since we're going in reverse. Or maybe we could talk about one of the prequel movies. I'm saving The Last Jedi for absolute last because that's going to be a doozy. Until then, may the Force be with you.